Good evening, everyone. A warm welcome from Indian Dietetic Association, Mumbai chapter. Today, we are here to celebrate or commemorate the World Breastfeeding Week. I'm going to start this session with a small poem. Breast milk. Some say it's nature's liquid gold, a gift more precious than anything sold. Some say it forms a bond like no other, of connection and trust between the baby and the mother. Some say the milk babies get from their mamas is a superfood you can make in your pajamas. Some say it's unique and cannot be matched. It's a secret imparted when baby is latched. Some say it's powerful healing elixir, a mysterious milky all-round heat fixer. Maybe it's a little all of the above, but I would like to say it's liquid love. It's not an unknown fact that mother's milk is like a boon to a child. And we are aware about the breastfeeding norms that are given by the World Health Organization that any baby, any and every baby should have the right to receive the mother's milk exclusively for the first 6 months of their life, right? And followed by that, at least if possible, up to 2 years of age. However, every mother faces a lot of issues and therefore support from the family members, the spouse, the friend, or the society is required. With this in mind, this year's theme for the World Breastfeeding Week 2021 is to support breastfeeding and protect breastfeeding. This week aims at creating awareness about the crucial effects of breastfeeding and its impact on the growth and development of a child, as well as the health of the mother. We've talked about this extensively last year. Today, we have a very innovative format that we bring to you. But before we begin with the program, I would like to invite our convener, Ms. Zamrut Patel, to give a welcome address. Kasturi, can I have her slide, please?
Hi, good evening all.
Ma'am, 1 second, I'll just introduce you.
Yeah.
So Ms. Zamrut Patel is the Chief Dietitian of Global Hospital, Parel, Mumbai. She's a registered dietitian and everybody is aware about her as far as renal nutrition is concerned. She's a chapter convener of Indian Dietetic Association Mumbai chapter. She has various publications to her repute of national and international level. She is a professor at various colleges like SLDT and SVT College of Home Science. And she's also guided several students for their research projects. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Sukuda, for those kind words. A warm welcome to all of you on behalf of Indian Dietetic Association Mumbai chapter. Friends, last year also we had many sessions in the breastfeeding week, and this year also Sukuda and Anga have taken the lead of joining many associations with us today on this platform. I'm thankful to both of them for actualizing this program. I welcome all our partners today. We have very senior Pai sir with us. Welcome, sir. And it's
Thank you.
an honor to have you here today with us. We also have Dr. Taru Jindal with us. Thank you, ma'am, for coming and sparing your time with us. And we have Miss Neha. They all are here to guide us further today on this year's theme on breastfeeding. Protect breastfeeding, a shared responsibility. And I'm sure we all eagerly await to listen to these experts, take their guidance, and to spread further knowledge on breastfeeding. So thank you all of you for partnering with us and sparing your time with us. So over to you, Sukuda. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am, for your kind words. So this year's program is in association with BABA, ICDS Maharashtra, PFNDI, our very close associates, NetProfine, and Eat Right India by FSSAI. So I welcome Dr. Pai, who is Executive Director of PFNDI, a very well-known figure in the nutrition world, nutrition and food technology world. And I request Sir to say a few words to our audience members.
Thank you, Sakuda. Let me first thank Indian Dietetic Association for letting us join as the knowledge partner. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm really looking forward to listening to all these learned scientists and uh, dietitians and nutritionists. Uh, One thing I would like to say that breast milk is probably the only natural food to uh, babies or any uh, uh, mammal. So all the other things are mundane. I think we have to make this week, as well as, we have to carry this forward throughout the month, throughout the year, this creating awareness about the necessity of breastfeeding. And I'm very happy to welcome you all to this very nice program. Thank you very much, Zamrud. Thank you, Sukada. And thank you, all of you.
Thank you,
Okay,
sir, for your kind
bye.
words. And we are very glad that we could have you on board for this program. Kasturi, can you go to the previous slide? So this year, instead of talking about the science of breastfeeding, which most of the mothers, dietitians, professionals are aware about, we are going to bring to you some scenarios that we've put together, curated with our team members. These are the scenarios where, in spite of being a person who has the knowledge, or understands why breastfeeding is important, yet you see, somebody or the other saying, "अरे थोड़ा सा पानी पिला के देख ले, थोड़ा सा शहद दे के देख ले." Yeah, why do you think that you want to breastfeed? Even now, she's eating everything. You don't really need to breastfeed her anymore. So these are the kind of things that you often see people coming to you with, and therefore that kind of mother is always in two minds. What do I really do? At one point, the lactation consultant, the doctor, the dietitian is telling me that breastfeed for 6 months, and here my mother, my friend, my sasuma is telling me something else. What do I really do? So we've brought curated a few scenarios for you today, and we have two experts with us who are going to address these scenarios so that you can show this video to your family members and talk about these myths that people talk about. So let me take this opportunity quickly to welcome our speakers and our narrator. So we have our narrator with us, Ms. Kasturi Devrukkar. She is a master's in sports nutrition, a consultant nutritionist, and Kasturi is also a faculty at various colleges. She's an active member of IDM Mumbai chapter, and we are glad to have her on board for this program. So you'll hear her voice depicting all the scenarios today. Kasturi, next slide, please. Our speakers are today coming from the field of lactation consultants. So we have Dr. Taru Jindal, who currently is associated with Doctors for You. She's a consultant OB/GYN, and she's associated with BABA. She again has a lot of awards to her credit, and she's published various papers as well. She's received scholarship for her training on breastfeeding from BABA as well. So her expertise is going to be of great importance to us. And today we look forward to her sharing her knowledge with us in the simplest possible ways. Our next speaker is Ms. Neha Gehi Arora. She's again a consultant. We had her last year as well for our program, and we're happy to have her again. She's a consultant with ICDS, Department of Women and Child Development. She's a master's in public health, and her key area of interest is maternal and pediatric nutrition. And she's also certified IYCF counseling specialist by BPNI and IBFAN. So over to you, Kasturi, Neha, and Dr. Taru. We look forward to having a very enriching session today. So Kasturi, can we have the first scenario on board? While we get the slides up, I request all the participants to post your questions only in the Q&A box, and restrict the chat for any other comments that you have. So all questions that are posted in the Q&A box or on our Facebook Live will be taken at the end of these scenarios, or at the end of this session.
First scenario.
Arey beta, we must make the baby taste honey or sugar water after 1 to 2 hours of birth. It's good for baby's health. Me and your uncle were given this too.
Dr. Taru, so this is a very common scenario that we see. Could you share your opinion on this?
Yeah. So, so it's right. What she's trying to do is she's trying to offer something called as a pre-lacteal. A pre-lacteal is any food or any drink that's given to the baby, you know, in like as an alternative to breastfeeding. Now, why we don't need to do this? The first thing that we need to know is the intestines of the baby are not fully mature 6 to 9 months after delivery, right? Unlike many other organs of the body which come out mature, the intestinal layer is not fully mature. You can think of it like a sponge. It is porous. So that is why the period of exclusive breastfeeding has been increased from 4 months to 6 months, because we don't want to introduce anything from outside in such a porous intestinal layer. And that is why the importance of just sticking to breast milk in the first 6 months and not even giving water. That is the first thing. Because if you give anything from outside, whether it is water, whether it is shahad, whether it is cow milk, everything can come with it. Infection can come from any of these sources, and especially, stuff like honey. It can have some heavy metals. Stuff like cow milk and formula. The cow milk protein that is present in that cow milk and formula can actually lead to inducing allergies and autoimmune diseases later in the baby's life. So this is the first thing why we don't need to introduce anything. Mother-in-law feel she should give all this. Yes, for the first 3 days, everyone, including the science workers, feel the amount of cholesterol that produces too less for the baby. And that is why I think that giving and the baby will not be satisfied. So is there any truth in that? So the answer to this is colostrum, which is the thick yellowish kind of milk that comes out in the first 3 days. Is it less? So the answer is yes. It is less, but it is adequate for the baby. Why? Because on day 1 of the baby's stomach is like that of a marble. You know, you've played marbles. So that's small, as small as a cherry. It's just 5 milliliters. So if the baby just takes 5 ml of milk in one feed on day 1, baby's stomach will be full. So even though colostrum is less, it is adequate for the baby's stomach on day 1. On day 3, the stomach size increases to, let's say, 25 ml. That's about the size of a table tennis ball. And you will see the milk production also increasing to 25 on day 3. And then on day 7, it becomes like an egg, the stomach size. And then the volume also increases to around 60-70 ml. So you can see that nature has designed the stomach like this, that it keeps increasing in size and the volume also keeps increasing. That's the first thing. And secondly, the colostrum is lesser, but it is highly nutritious. It is very sticky. It's almost like ghee, you know. And even it is of small amount, it has all the nutritious properties that the baby needs for the first 3 days of life. So there is no dearth of nutrition. It is almost like a vaccine. So all of us have taken COVID vaccines, but we are not giving vaccine to the baby, right? So the baby's vaccine is the colostrum. The first 3 days of milk provides the baby all possible immune factors from WBCs to antibodies, everything that the baby needs for lifelong protection. And it's a powerhouse of vitamin A. So even though colostrum is lesser, it is adequate for the baby. It is the first vaccine for the baby. And because it is sticky like ghee, it helps the baby practice the whole process of suck, swallow, and breathe. You know, a lot of milk, if just starts flowing on day 1, baby can get choked, right? So this is nature's mechanism to help the baby practice feeds in the first 1 or 2 days. And that is why we do not need to give anything from outside. It will risk the mother's milk coming on, because if the baby is taking something else, baby will not latch onto the breast. Baby will be satisfied, not hungry. Mother's output will get delayed. It will be slowed down. We have risk of infections, and we are inducing so many future diseases in the baby.
Thank you, ma'am. Next slide, Kasturi.
She keeps crying. I think breast milk is not sufficient. Should I give her top feed when she cries and also during night time? Is there a possibility breast milk amount depends on the size of the breast? I am so confused.
Neha, would you like to take this?
Yeah. So, so the thing you have to understand about crying is a way of communication of your baby to the mother. Okay, so child will not just cry when he is hungry. Child will cry.
Neha, you're muted. Please unmute yourself.
Sorry. Hi, you can hear me now?
Yeah. Yes, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I was saying about crying. Firstly, what mother has to understand is that the crying is a way of communication for the baby. The baby, when the baby is in infancy, below 6 months, the baby doesn't know any other way to communicate to his parents except by crying. So if child is crying, it doesn't mean child is just hungry. Child could cry if child is feeling cold, he'll cry. If child has wetted himself, he'll cry. If child is feeling wants a hug, what is child going to do? The way of communication for child to his parent is crying. So, can everybody hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, like I said, all the ways of communication for the baby to the parent is through crying. Okay. So that is the first thing you have to make the mother understand that the child could cry for several reasons, and over time it may be difficult for her to understand why the child is crying initially. So what we usually ask the child mothers to check is if child starts crying, you check whether the child is wet or if child is sleepy or if child is like sometimes they might be colicky, so or it needs burp, so you just make the child in a different position, and child will be silent. Now how there is see the what the second thing the mother has to understand or learn or is supposed to that how breast milk is produced. The demand, it is based on demand versus supply. So the more the mother will allow the baby to be on breast, that is how her milk demand will increase. Okay. So if she says it is definitely not dependent on the size of breast, it is only dependent on demand versus supply. So the more the mother's milk supply will, the more she'll allow the baby to breastfeed, the more her milk supply will be. And yeah, the crying should not confuse her. Like I said, it's just a way of communication. Instead, the mother should learn different soothing techniques, which will be even helpful for her when the child is a toddler. Because the toddler tantrum, if she has a good soothing technique from starting, then that will be helpful for her when the child is having any toddler tantrums as well.
Great. Thank you, Neha. Can we move on to the next slide?
Bahu, I have made methi laddus for you. Please have them. Also have shatavari so that there is good milk production.
Dr. Tarun, would you like to take this? Because this is very, very common and galactagogues are very popular. So what is your take on that? Dr. Tarun, would you like to answer this? Please unmute yourself.
Kasturi, I'm sorry, I'm not able to hear you.
Ma'am, so basically this is saying that galactagogues, can you hear me? Dr. Tarun, can you hear me? Sukada, am I audible?
Yeah, Naka.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll just follow 1 second.
Uh,
Yeah, can you take this?
Neha, is the audio bad from?
Neha, do you want to take this
Yeah,
one?
yeah,
Maybe
yeah,
Taru
yeah.
can take the next one.
Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah, sure. With this question, see, first, like I suggested, it is the galactagogues will be helpful like to a limit. But what is actually that going to help the mother is for milk production. So it's like if you did not eat methi laddu, which I did not eat personally also for like, I think, so my mother decided to give me methi laddus when my child was almost 4 months old. And I was like, yeah, okay, give me. But it was not a necessity. It basically gives you a placebo effect, which I learned very quickly in my first 3 days of postpartum only. So, what actually, like I said in my previous, during the previous slide, what milk production, what is going to be helpful is to understand that it is demand versus supply. So, the more the baby will drink milk, the more milk will produce. So generally, on the 15th, or between the 10th or the 15th day, most children will go through a growth spurt, and that time the child will keep drinking milk a lot. Like it will almost drink milk for almost 3 to 5 hours continuously, and that is when most of the mothers doubt over her milk production usually happens. If this is given as an anticipatory guideline when she is getting a discharge from hospitals, it will really help most mothers slipping through the, that loophole of that 10 to the first growth spurt. So during growth spurt, what child will do, will drink milk continuously for 3 to 5 hours, which is a phenomenon that we call as cluster feeding, which is a very normal and a common phenomena that happens. And during this phenomena actually is very good for mother's milk production, because at that 3 to 5 hours, or those 3-4 days when child will be drinking milk continuously, the milk production will get like a jump start. Like how you need that petrol when you're going to jump start a car. So it is that kind of, and that demand which will be encouraged because of the baby's growth spurt will actually help for the milk production. So cluster feeding is not your mother has low milk supply. Cluster feeding is actually good for your milk production or establishment of breastfeeding, what we call. So what will actually help with good milk production is you allow the baby to breastfeed on demand, and that is what going to help your milk production. So remember, demand versus supply. If you fill the demand of your child's growth spurt with top feeding, then how will your supply increase? Because there's no stimulus to your brain or your body to increase that milk production.
Thanks for that explanation, Neha. That was really helpful. Kasuri, can we have the next one, please?
Bahu, give rice water to baby from 3rd month. Let her get used to our home food. And also make sure to keep giving sips of water from the beginning.
Dr. Taru, would you like to take this?
Yeah. So first of all, I have already spoken why till 6 months, the intestinal layer is very porous like a sponge. And we do not want to introduce anything else from outside, whether it is food or water, because of risk of infections or, inducing allergies later on. But the real doubt of this grandmother is whether your breast milk is nutritious enough to kind of, fulfill all of baby's needs. So let us first understand that every species, whether it is human species, cow, buffalo, every species makes its milk tailor-made for its baby. So if you compare the proteins, carbohydrates, fats of human milk versus cow milk, then you will see that human milk was in fact made a milk with the lowest amount of protein in the entire animal kingdom. Because we don't have to become huge dinosaurs, right? Our babies just grow up to become like maximum 5.5 feet. So the proteins is very less versus if you see a cow's milk, proteins are super high because in just two years that little calf has to become a 200 kilo cow. So the proteins are very high. And that is why if you give cow milk to human babies, they cannot digest so much of protein and they don't need it as well. What formula has done? Formula has just taken that cow milk, added and subtracted a few nutrients to try to match it up to breast milk. But unfortunately, even if it does some addition and subtraction, it remains cow milk. It remains cow milk protein, the whey and the casein. The case, you know what is casein and whey protein? When you set curd at home, the whitish clump is the casein protein and the water that floats over it is the whey protein, right? The whey protein is like 70% of breast milk is whey protein, which baby just digests so fast within 2 hours. But 60% of cow milk, 60 to 70% is casein protein. So whether you drink formula or cow milk, that thing is going to go in the baby's stomach, become like a huge clump of curd and will take a lot of time to get digested. And that's why sometimes mothers say, oh, baby drinks formula and sleeps for 4 hours. Baby is not sleeping. Baby is overworking to digest that food. So first of all, every species produces milk for its own species. So our human milk is perfectly tailored in all its nutritional components with low proteins, high lactose, very high carbohydrates. And third is very good quality brain fats, which are omega-3 fatty acids, perfectly suited for the growth of a human baby. And that is why you don't need to give anything else, even water, because 88% of breast milk is water. So even in summers, you don't need to give anything extra because baby is going to just feed a little more and drink all the water. And we know that when milk production starts from one breast, initially the foremilk comes, which is full with water. Then hind milk comes, which is full of fats, right? So baby just ends up taking both. Like in food, you will take buttermilk also and you will take roti also. So baby ends up taking both thirst and satisfies hunger when it feeds continuously and empties one breast, right? So everything is beautifully designed for the baby with no need for outside support. And that is the beauty of exclusive breastfeeding till 6 months. I also wanted to add something about milk production here. So in our culture, there are lots of foods given for milk production, like shatavari or methi laddu or moringa or drumstick leaves or methi. Now, what is the role of all of this? Should it be given or should it not be given? As Neha said, that the basic fundamental of she will the same two breasts will produce 1.5 liters versus if it's a single baby, the same breast will produce 700 to 800 ml in 24 hours. So everything is about demand and supply. And the hormone that is responsible here is oxytocin. Oxytocin comes from the pituitary gland and helps the milk to come out from the breast. It is like waiter. And it's a very moody waiter. So oxytocin is hugely influenced by the mother's emotions. If the mother is not rested, mother is feeling tired, underconfident, blamed, not supported.
Dr. Taru, there is lag from your side. Could you probably switch off the camera and try?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
So the focus here is not these medications, not these herbs, because they work on increasing the hormone prolactin. But prolactin is not the issue most of the times. After 3 to 4 days of life, it is the oxytocin that is mainly determining milk production. And oxytocin, the only way to increase it is by helping the mother relax, rest, feel confident. And secondly, to increase the stimulation and removal of milk from the breast. This will increase oxytocin and all the other things are supportive. In fact, the focus should not be on that and the focus should be on improving the latch and position of the baby on the breast so that the baby is able to stimulate the breast the best possible way it can and literally draw out the maximum milk. Every time the breast empties, it is stimulated to fill up even more. And that maintains milk production, right? So let us shift our focus from herbs and medicines to just letting the baby decide what to do and ensuring good latch-in position. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. That was really a good explanation. Kasturi, can we have the next one?
Oh, give gripe water to baby. He may be crying due to colic. Gripe water is best. And also stop eating chana, vatana, cabbage, all those gassy foods, as this will increase colic.
Neha, would you like to take this? Because mothers are so vulnerable during this phase that anything anybody says, they get affected and they actually change their food choices. So what's your take on this?
Yeah. So, see, colic or even what commonly we also see is reflux. Both these issues, so reflux is when child is mostly acidic and keeps doing a spit up, and colic is when they cry in the evening. Now, the reason for colic is not very it's not usually related to gas as such in the stomach. It can also be just the evening crying phenomena. Okay, so we doesn't mean a child is having gas every time. What you really need to do with colic is not give gripe water or anything. In fact, now none of the pediatricians will ever suggest you to give the child gripe water, because it has been found most of the companies have had used to have an alcoholic form. Now you do get the non-alcoholic, but again, it is going to not support exclusive breastfeeding. So that is something which we do not suggest or recommend for colic. What you suggest or recommend for colic is your massages, the cycling exercise, the soothing techniques. Like I was telling, what mother should actually learn if she sees her child is what we called a very highly sensitive, or a child who cries a lot is usually called a highly demanding child, is to learn soothing techniques like you could, the way you hold the baby, the different holds that you give for baby, especially if you feel the child does show a better response, calms down when you there's like a sort of a compression to the stomach. So the way you hold on the shoulder, okay, or on your knee, or even on your when you make the baby sit down. So there are different soothing techniques that you can use for colic. Another one which I highly recommend most mothers is baby wearing. So baby wearing in a proper ergonomic carrier, or on a, even using a sari or sling or dupatta, will give you that baby the compression of stomach, but also will keep the baby upright position, which most babies, especially if they have reflux, they will really prefer that. Also, the baby will get to be like hear the mother's heartbeat. The baby is very familiar with the mother's heartbeat from the time the baby is in the womb. So that is a very soothing way, a way of soothing the baby. Now, the diet. Now you have to be very with diet, you have to be very observant. Yes, like in some cases, that eating certain foods may make your baby more cranky. Okay, I would not say gassy, but maybe I would say more irritable and cranky at certain hours of the day. So one, you might see caffeine is very common. So you observe, like it may differ. For me it was caffeine, for another mother it must be dairy, for a third mother. So don't keep, like, just without any thought keep excluding food out of your diet, but observe, did I have coffee today and I see a very cranky child in the evening? So then you know that, okay, you may have to do it maybe like 2-3 times to get that observation. Okay. The other thing which I would want to add is, like, why mother needs to eat a nutritious food is mainly because her body gave birth to a child. She has, she has had increased demand of nutrients to first form the baby healthy, And now to make sure that that she is what do you call, like, so when the baby was born, a lot of her nutrients, now when she's producing milk, her body nutrients is what is going to go start diminishing. So to her, for her own recuperation is what she needs to eat, her nutritious food, her prenatals or postnatal vitamins, and not to exclude foods without really observation. Like from my personal example, I observed that coffee was one irritable thing that used to really wire my child up, and we used to had 2-3 crying episodes in the night because of that. So I had to limit my caffeine intake to 1 cup chai. That's it. Yeah. Does Dr. Taru want to add it?
Yeah. So let me know if my video is not well. Okay. So generally, colic. So colic can be due to especially poor latch-in position. So if the baby, let's say this is the nipple and this is the areola, and the baby's mouth is not well latched on, and there is, it's a weak latch and the vacuum seal is not good, baby will end up taking a lot more air than it would otherwise have taken if the latch was good. It was like really a vacuum seal. So when the baby takes a lot of air, ends up a lot of air in the tummy and leads up in colic. So correcting latch in position itself will help. Second thing is, there is something called as non-nutritive suckling. So there are 2 types of sucks that a baby will do on the breast. First is the nutritive suck, in which you can actually make out that the baby is drinking milk. It will be like a slow 1 suck per second suck. This is a nutritive suck. You can actually hear swallowing sounds. You can see the cheek puffing up with milk, jaw dropping, during the swallowing. This is nutritive. Now, non-nutritive, all mothers know, and mothers say baby is doing time pass on the breast. It is faster. It is 2 sucks per second, and it is just predominantly on the nipple. Now, is non-nutritive suckling a useless thing? No, it was made for a reason. First thing is, non-nutritive suckling gives a lot of relief to the baby because breast is also an organ of comfort for the baby. So secondly, during non-nutritive suckling, miraculously, the movement of the intestines, the peristalsis increases and helps to push that air outside the anus, right? So we often say if your baby is stuck in a period of colic, just put the baby on the breast. When the baby will start non-nutritive suckling for some time, the gas will get pushed off, and in fact, an episode of colic can be turned away, right? So non-nutritive suckling is a great way to help the colic episodes. The third thing I want to say about colic is, a lot of times the consumption of dairy by the mother is a big cause of colic in the baby, because we have spoken that dairy means cow milk or buffalo milk. This has casein protein. So this casein protein that the mother is drinking is in fact passing through the breast milk to the baby and causing something called as cow milk protein allergy. Okay? CMPA. So this cow milk protein allergy, which is due to the casein protein in the breast milk, is sometimes causing colic and reflux. And an elimination diet of just dairy for 2 to 3 weeks has shown improvement in a lot of mothers, just switching to plant-based milk or sticking to ghee and not taking any other part of dairy. That can also be another thing that can be done. But as Neha has suggested, that most of the times, tummy time, just helping the baby, giving a lot of soothing and skin to skin and eliminating the triggers, that really helps in colic. Yeah, this is what I want to add.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for this inputs. Kasturi, can we have the next one?
Listen, you are having high grade fever, okay? I don't think it's good idea to feed baby. What if she catches fever through breast milk?
Yeah. Dr. Taru, would you like to take this?
Yeah. So the beauty of breast milk is that even if it is giving the virus or the bacteria to the baby, it is also giving the antibiotic to the baby. Let me explain. For example, if the mother has a particular bacterial infection, let's say she has pneumonia, Okay, and she's struck with some bacteria in the lungs. So if that bacteria is going to go to the baby through the breast milk, the antibody that her body has produced towards that bacteria will also pass along with that bacteria in the breast milk, go to the baby. So if the baby is getting the bacteria, baby is also getting the antibiotic. It's almost like mother is supplying that particular bacteria to the baby along with the bacteria. And that is why most of the times these babies don't end up getting any infections, whether it is a viral infection or bacterial. In fact, in a country like India, even if the mother has HIV or the mother has tuberculosis, we do not stop ever breastfeeding. We will give, we will tell the mother to take precautions during tuberculosis, like wear a mask, or in HIV, we will give her medication to decrease the viral load, but we never stop breastfeeding. So there is hardly ever a condition, including COVID, where you would separate the mother and baby and not breastfeed, right? So for all practical purposes, for almost everything known, we don't stop breastfeeding. We will continue, and we have to just focus on, like for COVID, we will just focus on hygiene precautions, but not interfere with breastfeeding. COVID virus anyways has not been seen in breast milk till now. And we know that a lot of antibodies are passed, and that is why there's no need to fear. Our children are not getting any vaccinations, right? All of us got it. So the only vaccine for the baby is that breast milk, which is going to prevent, improve baby's immunity and also protect the baby against those specific viruses and those specific bacteria that the mother is getting exposed to. So fever, no issue, just the baby and mother needs to be supported, that's all.
Thanks, ma'am. Okay, Kasturi, next one, please.
How will we feed a baby expressed milk once you go to office? How to warm it, how to store it, how to thaw it, and what about hygiene? Do you think I'll be able to manage all this? How will I figure out if it's not spoiled?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, see, in situations where mother knows that she'll be going back to office, it is always good to have a discussion with a trained person who can, or even with a mother who has managed to go to office and breastfeed a child, to understand what it all entails. So, a little bit of planning is what mother will need to do when it comes to, so yeah, the good practice is what I like. Usually I tell most mothers to get in touch around, not to stress from day one about what she'll do when she goes to office, even on the third month. About a month before she is going to office, what she can start doing is storing milk. So it is a good, she can start expressing even about even 30 to 60 ml of milk per day and start storing her milk. So first you have to understand that milk can be kept out for 6 hours at room temperature, back of the refrigerator for 6 days, and back of the freezer for 6 months. So the only reason why I ask mother now it's not necessary that she has to start storing express milk few weeks before, but it's just that she gets a good habit, because it will be anyway stressful to leave her baby and go to office. So asking her to suddenly start storing, expressing, she'll become very overwhelmed. So when she is about 3 to 4 weeks before, she can start pumping and expressing and storing. So she gets into a habit. And that is where she can even practice thawing and warming. So for thawing, basically, so you never heat the breast milk, you never microwave it, put it on gas, nothing. You half an hour before feeding the baby, if it was kept in the refrigerator, so basically in a tepid water, you just keep the bottle, And if it is a frozen milk, if you're taking out from the freezer, you will keep, so if you're going to go to office next day and you have some stock in the freezer, you can, how much ever you think you need, you keep it in the refrigerator, and the next day whenever they are going to feed the baby, 30-40 minutes before, they can keep the packet in the on tepid water. Basically, you just keep the bottle, it will thaw, and then they can feed the baby. It will come to room temperature and they can feed the baby milk directly. And what we do recommend is that you will always try and practice cup feeding first. And cup feeding is something which is that a newborn can also, feed. You don't have to, so that is the most uh, hygienic or the best way to feed the baby express milk. And then there is other methods which are okay, vati chamach, so through the spoon, or if you want, very rarely, you could use a proper sort of a cup, like a cup, like a pallada or something, but never nipple bottle. And like I said, if you're using the correct timelines, and you don't have to worry about the milk spoilage. Like I said, if it was kept 6 hours outside, you don't have to worry. Okay. Does Dr. Tarun would like to add in?
I totally agree, Neha. And I think preparation is important, and preparing the relatives is important. Once we start going to work, if they are going to just end up taking the bottle, then that's not done. So in the time when the mother is home in that 1 month, prior to joining work, she should actually ensure that whoever is going to take care of the baby after she's gone for a few hours does not take the bottle and feeds confident enough to feed with the cup, the katori. We in India, everyone knows about vati chamach, but people don't really know about direct cup feeding, just taking the katori and putting it to the baby's lower lip and allowing the baby to lap like a cat, like this, instead of pouring the milk into the baby's mouth. So cup feeding is a beautiful, beautiful concept. And even preterm babies as small as 32 weeks, just born at 8 months, they can also do cup feeding. So there are beautiful videos online for cup feeding. So we should just learn that and ensure that we never go to the bottle for express milk feeding. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Kasri, can we have the next one?
I have been allotted one of the dusty rooms to express milk with no facility to store it. It's such a small place, neither there is place for pump nor for the container. How will I clean the pump? God, please help me.
Dr. Taru, would you like to address this?
Ma'am, actually, I couldn't hear anything.
Kasri, could you repeat it? So basically, it's about what should be some of the ideal conditions when a mother is working, and what should be the ideal condition if she wishes to express or store milk?
Yeah. So first of all, she needs to have a good dialogue with her employer. And this is not something that an employer will do her a favor, right? We have the Maternity Benefit Act, and in that, allowing the mother, they have even spoken about creche, carrying the baby to office, and that if you have these many number of employees in your office, then you should keep a creche for the breastfeeding moms. So even if you don't have a creche, you definitely deserve pumping breaks and having a dialogue with your employer beforehand that I will need this. I will need a private space wherein I can take my pump and just peacefully have my juice or something and pump along with that. A private space. And secondly, a refrigerator at work is very important to store that milk. Because if you're going to be at your workplace for 8 hours, and if you're going to pump, let's say, at least 2 times, or maybe even 3 times, then where are you going to store that milk? You cannot carry your refrigerator to your workplace. So if you have a 2-door refrigerator in your office, nothing like it. The moment you pump milk, so generally we say 10 minutes on one breast. So if you have a single-sided pump, Or if you don't have a pump, if you want to do it with your hand, anything is fine. It's just that hands are definitely safer and they cause less infections, but they can be more tiring. So having a breast pump, it could be manual, it could be electric, anything is fine. That is also an option. So one breast, usually 10 minutes. So if you have a single-sided pump, it will take 20 minutes per pumping session. And then that milk can be stored in the same bottles in which you have pumped, or you can simply take steel containers of 100 to 100 ml, sterilize them at home by boiling in 10 minutes water, drying them in air, and carrying them to work. And this can be filled with that milk with the label of how much milk was put, let's say 100 ml, the date, and then put in the freezer of that fridge. After that, the whole day when you travel home, there has to be a cold chain. Just like you have a cold chain for vaccines, you need to have a cold chain for that milk, so that when it reaches home, it is exactly at the same temperature at which it was kept in the freezer. So we cannot have a freezer, so we can take a cooler bag. So a cooler bag is simply like a thermocol bag with ice packs all around, and the milk is kept in that, and the mother can travel with it to home and again put it back in the freezer to ensure cool chain. And as Neha has said, in freezer it stays for a double door freezer, it stays for 6 months. If it's a single door fridge, that freezer keeps for 2 weeks. And if it's in just general the compartment of the fridge, it is 6 to 7 days. So privacy, dialogue with the boss, a refrigerator, a cooler bag, and most importantly, lack of shaming. Because I know a lot of mothers who pump at work often feel singled out, feel shamed, feel not supported enough. Other colleagues don't help enough by saying, oh, she's taking breaks. They don't realize that this mother is building the future of the country by pumping and breastfeeding and doing so much along with work. So if we help mothers breastfeed and continue their journey of breast even while working, our breastfeeding rates will improve a lot. So employers have a huge role to play. Thank you.
Thanks for this valuable inputs, ma'am. Tasri, can we have the next one?
I had requested the management to give me flexi hours so I could meet the number of hours while going home nearby and feed the baby, but I was denied that.
Neha, would you like to take this?
Yeah. So see, like Dr. Tarun had said, what you really need to do is before you're pregnant, during your pregnancy time only, have your dialogue with your employer. Every employer, when they hire you and you get your contract, they are supposed to lay out what maternity benefits they are going to provide you. And if you're in an organized structure as per maternity benefit act, which was amended in 2017, if you have more than 50 employees, they are supposed to provide a creche and provide you with a creche break, so you can go directly and feed your baby at least 6 times during your working hours to your baby. Even if they are not providing you creche hours and they are less than 50 employees and they don't have an on-site creche, they can allow you 2 half-an-hour breaks where you can, if your house is close by, you can go and directly feed your baby. Or what they can actually provide you is work from home. And I think what this pandemic has actually taught everybody, that there is possibility of work from home. So that's not a thing that your work is not work from home. They cannot say that. So having lesser hours is another thing what they can provide you. And the challenge I understand is when you're in an unorganized sector, but you do need to come up with your HR and your employer that what is possible for them and you in such conditions. There is actually like there's a lot of dialogue which is happening right now, and I'm sure they are going to amend the act again, and it will be more favoring to women everywhere.
Okay, that's great. Okay, Kasuri, can we have the next one?
I had requested the man. Why do you want to feed breast milk after 6 months? Doesn't it say 6 months should be enough? How will you manage once you join office?
Taru ma'am, can you elaborate on this?
I think we've just discussed these points in the session so far, that I think what he's trying to say is enough of breastfeeding, right? You have done for 6 months now. How much more do you want to breastfeed? So, so let us understand what is the contribution of breast milk versus solid food in the first year of life, second and the third year of life. So in the first year of life, even if the baby is starting solid food from 6 months, yet the contribution of breast milk to child nutrition is 70%, and only 30% is the contribution of solid food in the first year. The second year of life, this contribution becomes 50-50%. And in the third year of life, the nutrition contribution is 30% by breast milk and 70% solids. So as you can say, at least till 2 years, the breast milk is providing half or more than half of nutrition to the baby. And especially during times of sickness, when the baby just doesn't want to eat. At this time, breast milk becomes an excellent source of sustaining the nutrition and giving a lot of peace and bonding to the baby. So the first thing is, let us realize the importance of nutrition, which continues even beyond 2 years. Second thing is, at 6 or 7 months, when the solids are starting, it is more of an experimentation with various tastes, textures, it's almost like we are experimenting with the intestine of the baby and the tastes of the baby. The main source of nutrition still remains breastfeeding. So it's a flaw when we think that after 6 months, breast milk has to decrease and solids have to overtake it. No. And that is why we don't use the term weaning anymore. Earlier at 6 months, they used to say wean off. No, this is complementary feeding. Complementary means something is going on and you complement, you add something on top of it. So breastfeeding will go like it has been going on till 2 years. We do not decrease it. We add complementary foods to it to help baby, because after 6 months, just breast milk is not enough to sustain all of baby's nutritional demands. That is why WHO says exclusive breastfeeding till 6 months and minimum duration of breastfeeding at least till 2 years and even beyond. So let us also realize it does not say just 2 years. It says 2 years and even beyond, because so many rural societies of India still breastfeed 4 years, 5 years, even 6 years. Why do they do that? Because after 2 years, even if you can see the solids taking a greater role in nutrition of the baby, but the immune factors and the brain fats, which is the DHA, these two factors, become the chunk of the breast milk. So even if mother decreases her frequency of feeding after 2 years and just probably keeps it 2 to 3 times in 24 hours, the breast will very smartly concentrate all the brain fats and immune components in those 2 to 3 feeds. And it will be like, a high dose of bonding, immunity and intelligence to the baby. So in my generation now, because of a lot of awareness, so many mothers are continuing to breastfeed even beyond 2 years. 3-4 years is also what I'm seeing in city bred ladies now, which is a very good sign. Yeah, this just needs a lot more awareness and encouragement. Done.
Okay, thank you so much. Kasturi, yeah, thank you. So ma'am, we'll take some questions now. First of all, thank you so much for amazing interaction and a dialogue. We really got some really good and practical inputs from this. We'll take the questions one by one. The first question I would like to ask Dr. Taru is that, what about those mothers who cannot breastfeed in the initial days due to C-section? And also I would like to club one more where they have said, what are some of the conditions in which the mother cannot breastfeed the baby? And then what is the best food?
So, unfortunately, cesarean is like a huge trauma for the baby, for the mother's body, right? And we have oxytocin is such a huge component of breastfeeding. It is like the waiter which takes the milk from the kitchen and gives it to the guest. So if the mother has a huge scar on her tummy and she is in so much pain, not given enough painkillers, then that oxytocin is just going to get killed in her body. And that is why there are issues with sometimes breastfeeding after cesarean, right? And if we take extra care during the cesarean to ensure that the mother's oxytocin just remains in full dose, then even during cesarean birth, we can ensure excellent breastfeeding. This is called as a family-friendly cesarean. Okay, a family-friendly cesarean is in which, even though the mother has to undergo cesarean for some maternal indications, but it is done in such a way that it is very close to normal delivery. For example, the partner or a relative can be present with the mother to just calm the mother down. The number of gizmos from the operation theater can be decreased. The moment the baby is delivered, just like normal delivery, just cut the cord and just put the baby on the mother's chest. And there will be a screen between the mother and relative feed. The doctor is the baby is cleaned on the mother's chest, never separated, just stays here for the entire duration of the surgery. And many times, by the time the stitches are over, the baby has taken the breastfeed. This is called as a family-friendly cesarean. And if gynecologists and pediatricians, kind of open up their minds more to this, then we can ensure that both the mother and the baby are coming out of the operation theater with the first feed done. Instead of, what we usually see, cesarean, mother-baby separated, mother is in pain, by the time the baby comes, mother is not producing milk because the oxytocin has been shut down because of pain and, lack of mobility and movement. The baby has already got the first formula feed and it is the start of a downhill. So starting off the first hour in a cesarean section with skin to skin and excellent family-friendly practices can really help. And of course, later on in the ward, continuing with skin-to-skin contact. So we say that first hour on the mother's chest, second hour on the father's chest. So, I remember when it happened in our house, we didn't even allow the baby to be kept on the bed because it was continuously on someone's chest. So the mother can just keep on her chest for skin-to-skin for prolonged periods of time till whenever she's comfortable. Father can take over the skin-to-skin later on. And the mother can be supported to breastfeed in lying down position, till she is comfortable sitting up. And when she sits up, we can easily feed in football position so that the baby doesn't come in the front and does not interfere with the stitches. So the baby can feed the football position. So it can easily be done cesarean if the whole team is geared up towards breastfeeding.
The second question was in which conditions the mother cannot or should not breastfeed? Are there any situations or none?
One thing I wanted to add.
Yeah,
For the C-section, I just wanted to add, so IIT Bombay has these health spoken tutorials, which is found on YouTube for freely in several languages. So they did a 3-part YouTube tutorials on how you can prepare the hospital, your nurses and your family for breastfeeding post C-section. So I would highly recommend if you know a mother may go, or you or your mother or somebody may go through C-section, you can share these videos beforehand so they can all be prepared on how they will initiate breastfeeding immediately, just like in a natural delivery. So there are resources, and I will share it with Sukhada and Anaga, and they can share these resources wide ahead. So I just wanted to add that. Yeah.
Thanks, Neha. Thanks.
Yeah. Dr. Tharu, you can start with the second question, and I can add
regarding the conditions where you can't breastfeed, I really can't think of many except some strange, vague medical conditions like galactosemia and all that. So let us not get into all that. For all practical purposes in India, if you even have AIDS and tuberculosis or COVID, you can breastfeed. So if you can breastfeed with this, you can breastfeed with anything. right? So we are not right now going into stuff like radiotherapy and chemotherapy and mother is on all that.
Right.
Forget about it. For all routine conditions, you will breastfeed.
Dr. Taru, since you said and emphasized about no bottle feeding at all, we would also want you to tell our listeners about why not. We need a strong message about it. Thanks.
So whenever you talk about bottle feeding, they will say nipple confusion. That is the reason to not do it. Let us understand what is nipple confusion. So the first thing is the teat, the nipple of a bottle is made of silicone plastic. So when that goes into the baby's mouth, you know that the oral cavity of the baby is a highly sensory zone. The moment you put your finger there, baby will start to suck it. So this plastic becomes like a hyper stimulus for the baby's mouth. And the moment that gets inside, baby gets almost like a nasha, like an addict to suckling to that nipple. Versus if the mother's nipple it's a very soft skin. So the baby does not get the same amount of kick or the hyperstimulus that the baby gets with plastic. And that is why the hyperstimulation of a plastic nipple and an understimulation of a mother's nipple can cause the baby to refuse the breast after a few times of bottle. Secondly, there is something called as overflow. When you take the bottle and just turn it, milk is just going to flow without control, right? So when the baby takes the bottle, the milk is flowing passively without baby's efforts, any efforts at all. Baby becomes a passive, lazy sucker and has to simply swallow. Whereas with the breast, it is totally opposite. Baby has to literally make a vacuum seal and exert all of the oral muscles to extract milk, like a suction apparatus from the breast. So when the baby can go by the lift, why will it take the stairs? So even one bottle in 24 hours can lead to breast refusal. So hyperstimulation and overflow of milk from the bottle are two reasons where even one bottle can lead to breast rejection. And thirdly, of course, we know the problems that with bottle feeding, baby's oral muscles and muscles of the ear are hardly exercised. So when the baby is drinking bottle, and especially when they drink in lying down position, milk easily travels to the ear because there is a tube here called as the eustachian tube. The muscles of that tube are like lying flat. They have no power because they have not been exercised and very easily getting ear infections, getting air, choking, milk going into the air passage. But this will never happen in breastfeeding in lying down position because it is such an active process that the oral muscles and muscles of the eustachian tube are so strong, they don't allow a single drop to go in the ear and they do not allow the milk to go in the baby's throat passage or the wind passage because the muscles have become really strong and effective. They fight. And that's why breastfeeding in lying down position is so safe. It's been done for centuries. You can't breastfeed in bottle. You cannot bottle feed lying down position. And of course, infections, no matter how much you sterilize, you cannot fully sterilize the bottle. It will replace the breast. The milk supply will stop. Latching will stop. It is a start of a mess. And so no bottles, no matter how slow flow or this flow or that flow or those new companies have, come up with all sorts of new techniques in bottles. Bottle feeding is bottle feeding is bottle feeding. You can't do it, don't do it. Cup is a better way to supplement milk.
Thank you, ma'am, for that really strong message. It was really needed. And last question now I would like to take is breastfeeding. It's really one of the things which even strike me that breastfeeding for a long time till 3 to 4 years, can it harm mother's health? And is it advisable to continue for such long? Is it really needed? What would you like to say?
Yeah, so I'd like to answer that. I will like to say I have exclusively breastfed my daughter, and today she is, I think, 3 years, 3 months or thing, and we are still breastfeeding, and nothing wrong with my health. What I had explained earlier was that what happens when you are going through pregnancy and then postpartum is your nutrition is what will keep diminishing. You see, nature has survival of the fittest, or the nature will ensure that your child gets everything. So what you have to do is have a good balance. Post pregnancy also, you should take care of your diet, eat a balanced diet, have a diverse diet so that you get all your micronutrients, and continue your vitamins, especially iron, especially till you have your hemoglobin rechecked. And calcium and vitamin D3 is something which you will have to maybe keep taking based on your diet. Like I still take vitamin D3. I keep a regular checkup of my vitamin D3. Calcium, I made sure I at least took for the 9 months postpartum. And then I have been eating a very diverse diet. I have also included exercise, and now and then I do portion control, but now we are also breastfeeding just once a day. So that is not a after you it's like I said, if the mother keeps a good watch on her nutrition, keeps a good check on her micronutrients, does a 6 monthly checkup, because it is basically you have to look after yourself, and then your body will be sufficient. Don't worry about your baby will get good nutrition irrespective.
I just wanted to add something here. So there is a myth that if you breastfeed for a very long time, your bones will become weak, right? So what is the truth about this? So it is true. There is something called as Malaysia of lactation, in which definitely the bones will become softer during breastfeeding. But the beauty is that when you stop to breastfeed, whenever you wean off, it's 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, whenever that is, your bones again get remodeled. Again, the process of strengthening of the matrix starts, right? And your bones will now filled up and become double strong, even compared to what it was pre-pregnancy. So it is shown that women who have breast long, they do not end up with osteoporosis as compared to mothers who have never, or women who have never breastfed. So even though you do lose some of the bone strength during lactation, it is all regained when you wean off, and in fact, it becomes like a stronger bone with lots of more support. So chances of osteoporosis have decreased. So it helpful. It is beneficial not just for the but also for the mother's health, preventing osteoporosis, genital cancers, and diabetes, and risks of diabetes and heart attacks, because it controls the metabolism. It's such a fat burning thing for the mother, right? So and that's why routinely, even in jungles, it is seen that our brothers and sisters who are the ape family easily breastfeed into 5 to 6 years. And even for human beings, it is said that it is natural for human beings to feed till then if they prefer.
That's really some of the things, ma'am, which have actually been something very new and very positive in actually findings that we've come to know today. And I'm sure all the people who listen to it will make note of it and practice the same things, and even deal with their patients and give them the right kind of information. So I would really like to sum up this session by, first of all, thanking Dr. Taru and Neha for their really amazing inputs. And we're so glad that we have covered the journey of a mother right from lactation till, for how long she should breastfeed, and right, at work, what should be done, and how the family should be supported. So I would just like to sum up by highlighting some of the things said in this session. The most important thing is every species makes milk tailor-made for the baby, and human milk is the most nutritious, which is low in protein, good in lactose, high in fat, which are very beneficial for the brain, and therefore that is the right and the only right kind of milk for the humans. Of course, never stop breastfeeding. If you are not keeping well, or even if the child is not well, keep breastfeeding your baby. Okay. Also, one of the most important thing is learn to start once you are going to start working, 3 to 4 weeks, that start expressing, pumping, learn how to store milk. Also take help of your family while you do it, so that it goes easy when you actually start working. And don't always like, don't hesitate to support or find help in doing all these things. Also start a dialogue at work with your employers, and lie down, actually, as Neha said, make sure that either there's a creche or there is a facility where you can express or store milk. Take breaks, pumping breaks. Okay. And yes, and keep breastfeeding, okay, for as much as 2 or even more than that. And they are not going to weaken your bones. In fact, the bones will be more stronger. But while doing all this, have a balanced and healthy diet. So breastfeeding has benefits for both the mother as well as for the infants. And therefore it is very important. And remember, it's a shared responsibility. And we had actually conducted breastfeeding week last year also. We have shared the YouTube links for the same in the chat. So I would not thank you so much for this session, ma'am. And I would now invite Sukhada, would you like to add something?
No, I think we'll invite Jayashree ma'am.
Jayashree ma'am,
for
yeah,
formal vote of thanks.
for the vote of thanks. Jayashree ma'am, can you unmute?
Thank you so much, everyone, every panelist. Dr. Jagdish Pai sir, you are always your encouragement and your inputs always help us, and you are always there like a father figure with IDA Mumbai chapter. Thank you so much for joining us. Dr. Taru and Dr. Neha, your inputs were amazing. And as Anaga rightly said, last year also we spoke about science and techniques of breastfeeding. This year we took it further, and you addressed mostly all the myths and the challenges which are faced by these new moms, because nowadays practically everybody, rather every mother is a working woman. So be it from whichever socioeconomic class. And today the message is loud and clear that breastfeeding is the way forward for the health of your child. And she requires support from every member of not only her family, but even support from her employers and her friends and everyone. And I hope that today's session has helped to, it has helped everyone to understand that yes, breast milk is the right choice, and that is your best friend for all the lactating mothers. Thank you so much once again for being with us and giving your valuable inputs. And last but not the least, Sukhada, Anaga, and Kasturi, you arranged a wonderful session of breastfeeding, which was needed. And this format, I'm sure, was very, very interesting, because otherwise, just hearing lectures can at times become thoda, I would say boring. But yes, this is a better way of answering all the queries. And our convener, Zamrud, who is always ready to support all the ideas which are presented of doing these programs in any all the different ways. Thank you so much, Zamrud. And I request everyone who has attended today's program, maybe on Zoom or on FB, please write to IDA Mumbai chapter. Also visit our YouTube channel for all your queries. And if you just want to listen to these programs and give your feedback at IDA Mumbai chapter at gmail.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
One last thing, I'll just inform all the participants. The recording will be available on YouTube as well as our Facebook page. So if you ever have to go back, refer to it, share it with your moms, sasu moms, anybody, please go ahead and do that. We hope that this resource is going to help you, in your journey for breastfeeding. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you, everyone.